Imam Al-Ghazali's life is reasonably well known to us, thanks primarily to a short memorandum written after his death by one of his star pupils. And we find throughout his relatively short life, he dies at the age of 55 by the lunar calendar, that his life indicates one of the signs of Qabul, which is an extraordinary proliferation of works and of activities and of achievements in a relatively short time. This is, if you like, an echo of the Sunnah itself. One of the miracles of the Seerah is that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam achieved so much in such an extremely short historical span of time. And many of the great ulama have also achieved apparently miraculous quantities. Imam al-Suyuti himself, who I mentioned a few moments ago, wrote almost 1,000 books. Imam ibn Hajar al-Asqalani wrote certainly 40 or 50 important books and a number of others, many of which are now still languishing in manuscript collections and haven't been printed as yet. Some of his books truly enormous. And when you consider the logistics of actually producing that volume of material and compare it to what contemporary scholars produce, a scholar, a professor nowadays is pretty unusual or lucky if he retires having published 6 or 7 books in his lifetime. A few manage more than that, but that's unusual. But in Imam Al-Ghazali's day, despite the absence of word processing and computerized library catalogues, there seemed to be barakah in their waqt. They were able to produce, to us, seemingly incomprehensible volumes of works. In Imam Al-Ghazali's case, we find that his works are not simple reiterations or summaries or commentaries. That is an honourable style of Islamic scholarship. But that was not his style. His was more concerned with renewal, in the sense intended by the phrase mujaddid, and that he took the established knowledges of his day and he showed the ways in which some of them had been distorted, the ways in which they needed to be rectified, and the ways, in most cases, in which they needed to be understood much more profoundly than they were being by the ulama of his day. So in this biography, which is by Abdul al-Farisi, he duly marvels on these literary accomplishments. But he is also, as all the best classic Muslim hagiographers were, concerned to present the Imam as a saint, as a prototype of Islamic spiritual wayfaring. And it's clear that the Imam in his day was venerated as much for his sanctity and holiness as for his literary output. He was born in Khorasan, and if you don't know where that is, well, it's, if you take a compass and put the point at the place where the borders of Tajikistan, Afghanistan and Iran now meet, and draw a circumference of maybe 200, 250 miles around that. That's Khorasan. He was born in a town called Tus. Tus nowadays is just a dusty village in the desert. It was destroyed after the Imam's death by the Mongols, never really recovered. But in Imam Al-Ghazali's day, Khorasan, far from being a backwater, as we might assume it to be nowadays, was possibly, along with Iraq, the great dynamic powerhouse of Islamic scholarship. Many of the great scholars, particularly the Shafi'i and the Hanafi traditions, came from Central Asia. An extraordinarily prosperous area economically. Tus was near the city of Nishapur, not too far from one of the greatest of all Islamic cities, the city of Marv, and a number of other towns, some of which still exist, some of which have crumbled into virtual non-existence, partly because of the Mongols, partly also because it's in an earthquake zone. If you go there now, you won't see any buildings that would have been around in Imam Al-Ghazali's time. Although in the 1930s, a team of archaeologists from the Metropolitan Museum in New York went to Tals and to Nishapur and did some excavations. And they were astounded to discover that virtually everything they came across seemed to be not a house, but a monumental building. A madrasa, or a hammam, or an enormous mosque, sometimes with ceramic tiles, paintings still surviving. And they were astounded by the sheer quality and quantity of the civilizational relics from that time, mostly lost due to earthquakes. So Imam Al-Ghazali comes from that enormously cosmopolitan, sophisticated world. His father is also a scholar and a merchant. He's born in the year 450 of our calendar. And